Welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
I'm Brian.
I'm Ron.
And this is our review of I Know What You Did Last Summer, starring Jennifer Love Hewitt, Ryan Phillippe, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., and Muse Watson for like 2 scenes. Written by Kevin Williamson, based on the novel by Lois Duncan, and directed by Jim Gillespie, released in 1997 on a $17 million budget, grossed over $125 million at the box office. Boys, I was at least $12 for that because I took a date to see this thing in 1997. So what about you two? When was your first experience with I Know What You Did Last Summer?
My first experience was on home video, VHS. Rented it in college, watched it with my current wife, and enjoyed the crap out of it because we like that kind of stuff. So, college. I think shortly after it came out on home video.
In my case, as with most movies of that time period, it was all about the premium channels. It's either an HBO or a Showtime. Watch it on like 2 a.m. because I can't sleep, kind of special.
Well, this one I remember distinctly when it came out, not only because I went on a date, wasn't that grand of a date or anything, but was a movie I knew was coming because I had gotten swept up in the Scream thing that happened the previous December, and Williamson was a hot thing in Hollywood. Everything he touched was getting greenlit at this point. You know, everything he was doing, Dawson's Creek was about to debut, all this stuff was happening. He was going to start working on a Halloween movie, which I, was real excited about at that point. And so this had been greenlit after the Scream script had sold, and everybody was so excited about it. So they started putting this one together, and it's another movie that does what a lot of horror movies still do to this day. They find a young cast with fresh faces that people know from TV, or nowadays it would be like YouTube or the Disney Channel or something like that, and we try to put them together. And I mean, it's neat to go back and look at something that mints people in a way, at least for films, because at this point, Jennifer Love Hewitt is on Party of Five. She's 18 years old. Sarah Michelle Gellar has just gotten Buffy, so it is airing while they're shooting this, so that's what people know her from. She's 20. Ryan Phillippe's 20. He's been on One Life to Live and had a small part in Crimson Tide as one of the sailors who almost drowned or something. And then Freddie Prinze Jr. had been like on Family Matters and To Jillian on her 37th birthday, and basically had tried out for everything and hadn't gotten a part. This was like his first big part because he had been up for stuff in Scream, and Williamson liked him, didn't cast him in that, but put him in this. So it's neat to go back and see these people at this point. And then you've got other faces. You've got Johnny Galecki, who had been on Roseanne for years and was now making a film career before going back to TV, and now people know him from Big Bang Theory. It's neat to go back and look at these people in this capsule of a movie now that's 23 years old by the time we're releasing this episode, guys. So it's weird to think about how long this movie's been in the cultural zeitgeist.
I had no clue that Freddie Prinze Jr. was on Family Matters.
He had like a walk-on part like for a couple of episodes or something, but he listed in his page as like his big break, that's not his big break, but whatever.
Well, what was his big break? Because I don't remember him in anything until this.
Yeah, this was it.
Yeah, I was going to say, and he's horrible in it too, by the way. Just going to throw that out there now. I just commented to my wife, I'm like, dude, he can't act worth a crap. Yeah, it was bad. But I had obviously known of Jennifer Love Hewitt because I was a fan of Party of Five. And then at the time, I was not watching Buffy. I became a fan of that probably in the 3rd or 4th year that it was on. So I had no exposure to her either because I didn't watch her in the soap operas when she was a kid. So
Yeah.
Ryan Phillippe, I think this is the first thing I saw him in as well. So the only one I really knew out of this was Jennifer Love Hewitt, which is probably why I rented this movie because I'm a big fan.
Were you a big Party of Five watcher?
Yes, big time.
It's funny because honestly, at that time period, I didn't know any of these people. I didn't watch Party of Five. I didn't watch Buffy. I still haven't. I couldn't tell you if I'd seen Crimson Tide. If I had, Ryan Phillippe made no impression on me. and I had no idea who Freddie Prinze Jr. was. So I didn't know any of these people at all.
I didn't know who Ryan Phillippe was. I knew he was in Crimson Tide after the fact. I was just kind of laying out what he had done before this. I knew Sarah Michelle Gellar was on Buffy, and I had started watching Buffy kind of in the middle of the first season. And so I was aware of her from that. And from the trailers, I could tell she was definitely not playing Buffy again. And by all accounts from her, the reason she did the roles because it was definitely the damsel in distress versus the, kick butt heroine. And I had watched enough Party of Five that I felt like I got it. And it was too mopey for me, man. Like, and in the 90s for me, that's saying something because I was definitely wearing the flannel and, staring at my shoes all day too. But it was just too much. I was like, I cannot deal with all that drama. So I had walked away from Party of Five, but I knew who she was. And moreover, I knew the setup for this was because it was on every poster, the guy that wrote Scream. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to get the same kind of thing. The trailer was very much a big whodunit. They're going to be chased by somebody with a hook. Got it. It was going to get my horror dollars no matter what at that point. So I was down. I mean, I was interested going into it. I can remember going to see it. And the person I went on the date with is a good dear friend. So we went on the date and realized we don't need a date. We're just friends. But she did not do scary movies, but specifically wanted to go see one with me because she knew it was my thing. And so we went and saw this. And I remember her reaction. I'll never forget this. Walking out, she's like, "Is that supposed to be scary?" And I just laughed. And I thought, well, that might sum up some of it. Of I know what you did last summer. And, I got to thinking about it. In the post-Scream horror world, horror movies got out of trying to be scary, and they just got into being very reverential and sort of self-aware, and they were punny, and they were kind of a mix of horror comedy, but they didn't flip over into the Leprechaun world of horror comedy so much. Like there was very much a self-aware bit of humor, but there was a lot of violence in them too.
See, I always look at this as not a horror movie, more of a thriller / slasher flick. I don't consider it a horror film myself. That's just me, I guess. But to me, this is a slasher movie.
It definitely feels more like a thriller, or almost like it's kind of like a dumb American giallo movie, except without the breasts and without all of the Technicolor blood.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Williamson wrote this based off of a book that had been optioned, and we'll talk about the book in a second. And he turned it into kind of a straightforward slasher flick. And then Gillespie said he got the script and he didn't think it was a slasher flick at all. He thought it was kind of a thrill ride with a morality tale at the center of it. And they purposely left it without any nudity and without blood. Nudity partially because all the actresses that were in this were like absolutely not. There was a little bit, but not nearly as much as you could have. And the one big scene at the end where there's blood was a reshoot because the studio demanded. So they went a little tamer, and I think you're right to say, Brian, this isn't your typical horror movie. I don't even know if it's your typical slasher. Maybe in like the terms that, the original Halloween didn't have a ton of blood in it either. But, Friday the 13th, that's a bloody movie. Those things were part of the world and had come and gone. And, I mean, the year before this, you had all kinds of bad things going on with horror movies. So Scream had resurrected that, and that's kind of a bloody movie if you go back and rewatch it. This one's the other side of that coin.
I mean, there's plenty of blood, I think, in this to make it that. Also, you didn't mention Anne Heche is in this movie. I think she's going to be a little pissed about that.
I think she will probably not care that I didn't mention her 2 days of work that show up in this film. Well, that's what she called it. It was 2 days of work to try to be, quote, creepy. And so
it definitely was creepy.
Yeah,
so
well,
good job.
If you go back and watch Anne Heche's career, this is not a far stretch. This was good casting. Like they were looking ahead. But
it's weird that you called this a slasher movie, Brian, because to me it's like 2 edits away from being a Lifetime movie.
Wow.
Like if you just cut out the Johnny Galecki's death scene and you cut out some of the blood that they added in the end in that second round of reshoots, or in the round of reshoots, you've got like a Lifetime thriller. Considering
the source material, that's not a far stretch. And Brian, you took the bullet this time and actually listened to the audiobook of the Lois Duncan YA novel, I Know What You Did Last Summer. So do tell, what did you gain from that experience?
Oh, I thought the book was actually really good. I find it fascinating because nobody dies other than the kid, who is a grown up in this one, or a teen, I should say. He's the only one who really dies in this book. Everyone else survives to the end, and I thought that was kind of a cool little twist that they did there. But I thought the book was pretty good, and I think that they did a fairly decent job of using the important parts of the book in the movie, changing a few things here and there. There's some scenes where they go to the house and they meet the sister, which is the same, but instead of it being Helen and Julie, it's Julie and Ray who go there. So that was a little interesting tidbit there. Same premise though. Car breaks down, need to use the phone, blah 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 blah. Learn a little bit more about things, what's going on, all that kind of stuff. There's just little pieces in the book that are changed slightly in the movie, and then obviously death added to the movie to make it a little more intense. But in the book, everyone survives. Everyone gets attacked, but they all survive. They're being chased by a stepbrother of the deceased, or half-brother. I think it's actually a good book.
Ah, okay. So there's the difference. So, but it's neat to hear, though, that they stayed relatively close to it. This was one I didn't know about until, of course, years later. I didn't know about it until many years later, and I actually bought it for like $1 to put on my Kindle and have just never read it. And we were getting ready to do this. You're like, well, you know what? I've got some Audible credits, and I said, well, I'm glad you're going to waste them for the show, so thank you.
It was actually a really good listen. So if you're interested, read it, because I think you might enjoy it.
The funny thing is, the director said that like all the young women on the set had all read it. Like Sarah Michelle Gellar read it, Jennifer Love Hewitt read it, Bridget Wilson had read it, Anne Hesh had read it. All the women in the cast had read it, and he hadn't. And so he thought that, well, it at least resonated with the people that were playing the age of, which I thought was kind of neat.
Yeah, well, it's a young adult novel, so I mean, it's for teenagers, and yeah, I mean, they kept a lot of good things from the book in there. Like Helen's sister just hates her, which is in the book, and it's kind of a fun little tale. They kind of put some suspense on her being the problem or the person that's attacking them, things like that.
Yeah, they try to do that here, but
well, they do. They try to, but yeah. So I don't know. I thought it was a good read, or a good listen anyway for me. But I think if you wanted to read it, I think it's good. And I think they use a lot of the good stuff in the book in the movie as well.
Oh, well, that's cool. So, well, I think we've danced around it enough. Ron, I'm going to toss it to you. Tell us a good plot summary for I Know What You Did Last Summer.
All right, I'll do my best. 4 friends are enjoying their last 4th of July before heading off to life after high school. One couple, Julie, that's Jennifer Love Hewitt, is headed off to college. Ray, the Malek couple, that's Freddie Prinze Jr., is pursuing his writing career. The other, Barry, that's Ryan Philippe, is going to college on a football scholarship while his girlfriend Helen, Sarah Michelle Gellar, is headed to New York to follow her acting dreams. Everything goes awry when the group is involved in a hit and run. They leave an injured stranger for dead and swear never to speak of this to anyone again. A year later, having gone their separate ways, the group is brought back together when they start receiving notes from a stranger claiming, "I know what you did last summer." Julie did some investigating and is convinced that they killed David Egan, who was said to be on the road mourning the death of his fiancée, who was killed in a car wreck involving him a few years back. The notes turn into attacks by a person dressed in a fisherman's slicker wielding a big hook as a weapon. The fisherman eventually dispatches Barry and Helen along with a few other townsfolk until it's just Julie and Ray who are left. The two learn the person they hit was actually a man named Ben Willis, who had killed David Egan in revenge for the death of his daughter, the fiancée Susie, and was escaping when Barry's car hit him. Julie and Ray fight with Willis, and his hand gets caught in some ropes and is cut off before he plunges into the water, though his body is never recovered. And in a stinger scene, we see the fisherman jump through a glass shower door at Julie, who is back at college, as the screen cuts to black in the classic Friday the 13th ending.
And that is a good plot summary, I think, for this movie. If you haven't seen it in a while, it's kind of a simple through line, oddly enough. And we open up with a cool thing for me now, living now in North Carolina. I remembered when the movie started, yes, this is set somewhere on the coast of North Carolina. I live on the other end of the state, but I looked it up. Southport's a real place. They shot a lot of the movie there, but not this coastline. My wife said, hey, is this what that really looks like? Because she hadn't been there either. I paused it, looked it up. I was like, no, that's California. So not quite the coastline you'd get here in the Carolinas, but a cool opening scene. And Brian, I know for a fact, because we've had this conversation before, you're a huge mark for this song, Typo Negative's cover of the Seals and Crofts Summer Breeze.
It's amazing, I must say. I was singing along with it, and my wife chuckled at me. She knows the Seals and Crofts version, not necessarily the Typo Negative version, but I did my best Peter impersonation and sung in my deepest voice possible. It was glorious.
I am a big fan of their cover of Neil Young's Cinnamon Girl.
Yes, off of the October Rust album. Good.
Yes.
Very good.
I would not have known this band was a thing until I met Brian all these years ago, and you introduced it because we were having a conversation about this movie to me. Like, oh, I'm a huge fan of this band, and so I listened to a little bit of it. Not really my thing, but funny enough, my wife knew this version of Summer Breeze and not the other one. Which my wife, not the goth rocker, so I don't know where that came across her ears, but she loved it. She was like, oh yeah, I love this song, and I was like, how do you know this? It's because it's not her fare generally, but I guess in the 90s that was her bag.
If you haven't listened to Black Number 1, Jay, you really need to just take the leap. That's the most famous Typo Negative song.
I'm writing that down now so that I can indulge later on. I will say it is an ominous thing, and if you haven't seen it, folks, you don't know what we're talking about. Imagine like the deepest possible voice singing this beautiful summer love song while this grungy, sludgy guitar goth rock is going underneath it, and you have this gorgeous coastline, this beautiful sunset, and this totally gothic, dark, depressing thing laying on top of it. And you get the motif that Jim Gillespie and Kevin Williamson wanted you to have for this movie. And I gotta say, it's a good opening. You got a kid sitting on the side of a cliff there. He's drinking beer. He's flipping this little charm bracelet that makes this little chime every time he spins it around with somebody's initials on it. We don't yet know what's happening, but we know that there's lots of mood here. And I will give this movie this much, that they set up a great mood to start with.
I would agree. I think that going in, the Typo Negative sound, that real slow, sludgy sound really sets things up really well. And you see him, it looks like he's contemplating killing himself is what it looks like. He's deciding whether or not he wants to jump off this huge cliff. And that's a nice, ominous song to be playing when somebody's looking like they're going to do that. But it definitely sets the mood right away as we see just a real depressing situation for this guy to get us moving through here before we get to the scenes with the students around.
Yeah, it's a real contrast that's coming up because in the background you see like fireworks going off, right? Mm-hmm. And Southport, North Carolina is known to have this huge 4th of July festival. I don't think they call it the Croker Festival, but that's what is happening here. And we see your small town theater beauty contest going on. And it's basically, this is an interesting way to intro our characters. And I want to say I've seen this so many times because this is like a Williamson thing. And Ron, you're the writer here, so I'm kind of leaning on your knowledge to check me on this. This is how he likes to just throw a lot of people at the screen at once. You get your main personality types from everybody just in the first few lines of dialogue that they all have.
Well, it is technically, once we jump into the main characters, it's like an in media res beginning, because we're not coming into the beginning of the beauty pageant. We're coming in at the very end. Mm-hmm. And he does a really good job of efficiently establishing just who these people are and what types of person they are, just based solely on, like, you have a certain expectation of what a beauty pageant girl is going to be like. From the kind of greasy bangs that she's got, you get an immediate impression of what Jennifer Love Hewitt's going to be like. You've got the crooning loudmouth boyfriend in his football jacket. And then you've got the other guy, Freddie Prinze Jr. You get a pretty good, like, immediate sense of, okay, this guy's a jock. This guy's just kind of a hanger-on. She's kind of like the mousy smart girl because she's got dirty hair. And obviously the beauty pageant girl is going to be like the I think I'm better than everyone type of chick.
Who had the patent pageant answer, like I'm gonna, become an actress to serve the country or some nonsense, right? I was like, wait. But at some point, one of the characters, I think it may have been Philippi, looks at Jennifer Love Hewitt like, "Did you write that for her?" And I'm like, wow, okay. So, but which is funny because you want to lay that kind of personality on Sarah Michelle Gellar. What you realize is that Julie's just like her. She just doesn't have the confidence. Like she thinks the same, or at least she can think like that. And so the fact that we established that the two girls are really the close friends, and the guys just happen to be dating the girls. That's why they're hanging out together.
Oh, for sure. I think that's exactly what we're getting out of it. So I kind of like the quick intro to them. And then, of course, it's the end of the school year, right? The school's out, I suppose. It's the 4th of July. So they're getting ready for plans to go on to their next stage in life, college. And I think it's kind of interesting. This is kind of, I think, supposed to be their last hurrah together before they go their separate ways. Is that how you read it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, well, two of them are definitely going to college. Barry and Julie, Jennifer Love Hewitt and Ryan Phillippe, are going to the same university in Boston somewhere. He's going on a football scholarship. She's going on a full academic ride. Ray's going to New York to be a writer, like in, I guess, the Greenwich Village or something like that. And Helen, Sarah Michelle Gellar, is supposed to be going to join like Guiding Light or something like that, which I think is funny because I believe she was on Guiding Light at the time. And so it's sort of she's going to be the actress in New York. So two of them are sort of following artistic dreams, and the other two are going to college. Though I guess Barry's not much of a scholastic person. I don't think we're supposed to get that.
Okay, so if Ryan Phillippe is going to college in Boston, he would have to be going to like BU, right?
BU or
Boston
BC?
College.
BU or BC, one or the other.
He's too small to play at BC.
Yeah.
So he has to be at BU, right?
I would think so.
Because I don't get the impression that he's smart enough to be in like an Ivy League school.
But see, the thing is, BU is like a big time school. That's almost an Ivy League school. So I don't know where him as a football player, I don't get. Him as a menacing, mean asshole boyfriend is why he got the role, because he could be intense. And Freddie Prinze Jr., who is 6'2" and probably could look like a football player and had played athletes later in his career too, is too everyman. He's too nice of a guy. He's also a bad actor. But Ryan Phillippe could be mean, right? And that's why he got that role.
Now, to be fair, he's a bad actor in this. He is better in other things.
True, but he's terrible in this.
Like what?
Yeah, and Ryan Phillippe he's great in the Scooby-Doo movies. Freddie Prinze is.
Freddie Prinze is, yeah.
Yeah, he's great at playing a dumbass, but...
Well, yeah, nobody said he was playing Einstein.
You don't have to be a good actor to pull that off. I mean, look at Keanu Reeves.
I will say this about Freddie Prinze Jr. Many years later, he ended up on a season of 24, and he was very good on it. And so I thought, okay, he turned into a good actor. He was fine. In this, he's supposed to be the working class boy who's hooked up with the rich kids. Because that's the thing we'll know about all of these three kids. Like, they come from affluent backgrounds. We see it in their lifestyle and what their choices are and where they're going in life and stuff. And he doesn't even know who his father is. We find out later his father was a fisherman, maybe. He's a working class guy who's kind of hooked up into the upper crust of the school somehow. And so he's definitely hanging on. I think you nailed it. He's definitely the hanger-oner.
They do a really good job of establishing him as like, hey, this is our poor friend.
Right, exactly.
Look at this act of charity we're doing. He also might be the town minority. We're not sure.
Wow.
I don't think they knew that at the time, but yeah.
He's our town Puerto Rican.
I mean, he's dating, the smart, pretty girl in town. All right. Who again comes from a well-to-do family.
But are they trying to downplay her prettiness? Are they trying to make her look like mousy and boring?
So.
Oh, big time. Yeah, I think they're doing that whole smart girl who finally takes her glasses and jacket off, and all of a sudden, oh, she's gorgeous. Which was also a movie Freddie Prinze Jr. was in.
Because I mean, maybe it's just hindsight, me judging the fashions of 1996. But her really thin bangs just look awful.
Yeah, my wife commented on this as well. She's like, I'm glad she didn't do that. That's bad. It's like, yeah.
That's because they look like greasy as hell.
But I think they're supposed to, right? Especially when she comes back after the year off in a minute. Like they basically white pancake makeuped her to death, which, in modern resolutions on television, you can see it like it's an inch thick on her face. And then they've just greased her hair out like she didn't wash it for 3 weeks or something.
Well, she's disheveled, so yeah, I guess that's what it looks like when you're disheveled.
But even then, like, there's a definite contrast between her and Helen, though we see them after Helen wins the Croaker Queen thing or whatever, they're walking through the crowd together. By the way, Elizabeth Rome comes across the screen, so say hi to The Handmaid's Tale as it comes across the screen in the early role. And she's also a foot taller than both of these actresses. And then, but you get the sense that her and Helen are friends. Like, that's why I was laying out the dynamic, and why I found it interesting is Kevin Williamson wrote the Scream thing was really about Sydney, and how this girl and her friends react. And he is good at writing like female friends, which is not an easy thing for anybody to do. And I think what he set up here is that these two girls are friends, and their boyfriends just happen to get brought along because that's just what you did in high school. But otherwise, Ray and Barry would not have been buddies. They didn't play ball together or something like that.
They didn't even especially seem to get along together.
Yeah, it was very much like you're just here because you're dating her, was the way Barry kind of treated Ray.
There was always a lot of friction when you had the two of them together.
Yeah, and can I say right now, this one of my big bones to pick with this movie is that there's a real interesting thing they could do with this and that they don't. That involves the Ray character, and I'll talk about it more as we go through, but they're underlining the hell out of it, and then they never pay it off for any reason, except just to set up another red herring.
Well, also, Barry doesn't seem to like Julie either.
I don't think Barry likes anybody.
I think Barry doesn't like his mom, so, I mean,
yeah,
it's not a shock. He's dating Helen because she's the prettiest girl in school, probably, and he's the quarterback, so he's got to. But yeah, I don't think he likes anyone except for alcohol and sex.
Right. So, I mean, and we see it now. We get them on the beach together. We tell some urban legends because that's what we do, right? And Kevin Williamson will cop to the fact that he put this in there because he wanted to underline that, like, here's the urban legend. Now here's a quote real thing that happened that involves some of the same stuff, the foreshadowing. And I want to ask you, Brian, is there anything like this in the book at all?
No, the book, it doesn't go through any of this pre-accident stuff at all. Like, none of it. They explain that Helen is some kind of like beauty queen winner who becomes a news anchor because of it. It's really weird. And Barry's the quarterback guy, and Ray's a fisherman. He actually leaves and goes fishing after the accident and comes back a year later. And so they don't go through any of that stuff to set this story up. And just gets right into it.
And according to Williamson, that's what really attracted him to some of this. His father was a commercial fisherman in North Carolina, so he wanted to write it around that. I think that's why you see Ray get the story arc he gets, is Williamson doesn't want him to be the bad guy because he got a lot of respect for his father, and he just wanted him just to be an everyman. And they definitely cast that in the role here. But I think we all agree, like, the guys would never be friends with each other. It's debatable as to how the girls are even friends with each other, because I would wonder how they would. Together. Is that it? It's such a small town. They run in the same circle no matter what.
No, they grew up together as friends. They've been friends since they were little. She drops that line later in the movie.
Ah, okay.
So, yeah, that's why.
Okay, so their party ended up on the beach because we have to have our beach scary stories, and then we all have sex, and then we're gonna drive home. But I want to say this: that like the only time I'm gonna side with Barry this entire movie is when they're driving home, and Ray and Julie have this mope rock going on up in the front seat. And no, like, we're not doing that. Let's turn on some pseudo 90s punk rock and let's have some fun. So he's goofing it up, and whoops, we hit a dude
or something. They didn't know yet. Could have been a deer.
Having been someone who has hit a deer and it flew over the top of my car, I can tell you how disconcerting that is. Like, it's you very much feel like you've hit a large creature.
I've hit 2 deer in my life, 3 deer actually. 2 of them did some major damage to my car. One of them I just clipped and sent tumbling. But I love the line, because this is something I know about. But I love the line of, if we hit a deer, where's the body? Well, the deer can run for up to 5 miles after being hit before it dies. Just so you know, little tidbit there.
I think the song you're referring to, Jay, is an Offspring song.
I think so. Yeah. Again, the late 90s resurgence of somewhat punk rock.
Yeah, got there's an Offspring song. There's a Boss Tone song on here later. It's There's a Southern Culture on the Skids song. It's a pretty great soundtrack. Just
this soundtrack is an encapsulation of late '90s music, like almost completely.
Especially that Toad the Wet Sprocket cover of Hey Bulldog you get later in the college scene.
Yeah, you get that. You get an Our Lady Peace song, Clumsy, in here. I think so. One of the party scenes or something. I love that song, by the way.
Can I just say how apropos it is that the Offspring song title is DUI?
I think that's exactly why it's in that spot. So, the thing you got to learn about Kevin Williamson scripts is that it's all built off of and I don't know if he's ever admitted to it, but he must have just been totally in love with the way that like the Back to the Future script is written, where everything is there for a reason and it pays off to something else, except for the Ray character, which we'll get into. But he doesn't just lay stuff in there for nothing. Like he has influence on all of this stuff, and he had a good bit of influence on this. And look, the people producing it weren't idiots either. Stokely Chafin's a great horror producer of the late 90s. She knew what was cool. And she had just come out of doing a ton of stuff and would do like Freddy vs. Jason and a lot of other things that some of which we've reviewed on here. So she knew how to place stuff in here. This movie is built by a studio to make a hit and not spend a ton doing it. And $17 million on this kind of horror movie was a lot of money in 1997. Like, people did not put that kind of money in a horror movie unless Jamie Lee Curtis was coming back 20 years later or something like that. So they clearly knew what they were doing here with their cast and with everything that's in it, and the DUI song is just on top of it. But, of course, it's all to set up the big thing because Julie finds the boot to the side of the road, and now we know we've done damage to somebody, and we're all freaking out. And our good friend Max, Johnny Galecki, probably the most sinister thing he's ever done in his life is this role where he tells Freddie Prinze Jr. to wipe that grin off his face. And I'm like, man, and what I realized then is they should have called this movie.
Don't test me, man.
Yeah, there's that, and I'll kick your quarterback college ass and all that stuff. I realized they should have just called this movie I Know What My Red Herring Did Last Summer, because everybody that's not the main cast, and even half of the main cast, are the red herrings in this movie.
Well, that's what you do, though, when you have a suspense or thriller movie. You got to try and make it look like everybody could be the bad guy, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah, you definitely need to sow the seeds of the red herring early and often. One of the reasons why Barry is such a jerk to everyone, they're establishing pretty early on that he could just randomly start killing these people because he's not a very happy person. He's an angry little man.
Which is funny, though, because Johnny Galecki is smaller than he is. So, I mean, the smallest people are the red herrings in this movie. The tall people are sort of standing over to the side.
Angry little man syndrome. It's a real thing, man.
Yeah.
They're showing it here.
Yeah, definitely. With Barry, I really definitely feel like there's some Napoleon complex going on.
Right. You could definitely say that when he comes back a year later and he's like a huge drunk, and Julie says, nah, it's a big campus. It didn't really see many. I'm like, well, clearly the football star thing ain't working out. Like, maybe he was a big deal in 3A North Carolina high school football, but he goes up to Boston and he's warming the bench. Who's that guy?
Okay, so Ryan Phillippe in real life is 5'9", which a Hollywood 5'9" means he's probably about 5'7" on street clothes.
Right.
So Ryan Phillippe as a quarterback, even for like 1996, he is an extremely undersized quarterback. You didn't see a lot of like 6'7" quarterbacks in the mid 90s, but man, he is tiny. The only quarterback under 6 foot or under like 5'9" and under that's ever been noteworthy is the guy that the college football best quarterback trophy is named for, Davey O'Brien.
That was when the average height of humans was like 6 feet. So at least Americans.
I went and I Googled quarterbacks 5'9" and under, and it was a bunch of never heard of them and Davey O'Brien.
Wow. See,
and Drew Brees is considered small.
Yeah, he's 6 feet tall. Yeah, he's 6 feet tall. Russell Wilson is technically the shortest starter in the league as of this recording because
5'11".
He's 5'11". I think Kyler Murray is right around that same run to the quarterback from Oklahoma that Arizona drafted. So yeah, they're the shortest ones. And then I live in Carolina. Cam Newton's 6'6". So I mean he's a defensive end playing quarterback. So yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm going like I could buy Barry as like a slot receiver. Even in the 90s, I don't remember, like even my high school, and we weren't any good. Our quarterbacks were tall guys. Like I just can't. It's hard to buy him. Why did they have to make him a quarterback? I guess it's because we want the stereotypical jock thing. But like honestly, nowadays if they recast this, he would be like a badass lacrosse player or something. right? So I mean, because that's a violent sport, by the way. So I'm like, I can see that. So.
Yeah, like the quarterback for the team, for my high school team in 1999, who won the state championship, he was still like 6'3", and he was like a backup in college.
Yeah, it's hard to buy. It's also hard to buy later that like his workout is kickboxing. I don't think I'd let my quarterback do anything that could damage himself like that. Like if he wants to run, but no, you can't. You cannot hurt your hands or your feet, you idiot. So.
Yeah, you can go. You can start out with some light boxing, then you can juggle dynamite.
I mean, yeah, I get it. It's cardio, right? That's what we want to show. This guy's ripped. He's cardio or whatever. The problem is anytime you stand him up next to Freddie Prinze, you realize how much smaller he is than him. And it's probably why Freddie Prinze is often like sitting down or he's like a deck below where they are because he's so much taller than the rest of the cast. So.
Or when you punch him, you're walking uphill.
Yeah,
to get him.
Yeah, right? So
camera angle, man. It's all about camera angle.
Or like I've noticed that a lot of when Barry and Ray are in the same scene, Ray will be behind the group to make him smaller.
Yeah, like down the hill coming up. Yeah, which I think is also because he's supposed to be behind all of them socioeconomically too. Maybe I'm giving the movie way too much for that, but.
I think
there we are. But anyway, we spent a ton of time on the opening here and setting up these characters. We got to talk about like when they decide. Barry's the one that's like, we got to dump the body. Like the fish will come along, they'll eat it up. Nobody will know what happened. He's dead. There's nothing we can do for him, right? And we've got a lot of I don't know about this, Barry, and everybody's back and forth. And I will give our actors credit. They did a good job of kind of selling me on the immediacy of having to make that decision, and then what would you process like? What would you do? Because Ray at first is like, no, look, I can't get out of this like the rest of you can. I've got to do it. But when they get down to the dock with the dude, he's like, Barry, I can't do it. Like he's just frozen up. And it's ultimately Helen that ends up helping him pitch, the guy into the drink. And I did think that was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a good job of the severity of the situation and the fact that, having Julie be the only rational one to say, we can't do this. You can't live with yourself. And everyone else is kind of going, well, I don't want to ruin my life, not thinking that something like that could ruin it anyway. But yeah, I thought they did a pretty good job. And I like the fact that it's Helen who's like, oh, screw it, I'll help you get him in. I think that's kind of a good character for her because she is basically going with whatever Barry says. And in the book, she does the same thing.
Okay.
She's definitely seems to be kind of like the I hate to go back to the Lifetime movie thing, but in a Lifetime movie, Barry is clearly beating the crap out of Helen. Are we clear on that?
Oh, yes.
Because at certain points, she comes across almost like an abused girlfriend.
I mean, she does. I mean, and later on, she plays it almost like she's the divorced ex-wife because she's chain smoking. She looks like hell, and she has to go see him for money or help. Right? It's right. You and I are in the same place, Ron, with this Lifetime movie. I don't think Brian watches enough of them, but if he did, he would know. I
don't watch any of them, so I'm good with that.
You're missing out, dude.
You got to join the club, dude. So, no, I think you're dead on, and that's a good character thing. And yeah, again, I'm going back to my head in 1997. This is Buffy that I'm watching do this, and I'm like, well, that's a different thing. That would not be what I would expect Buffy to do. So it's a different thing than what you expect as an audience that works for an audience all the way up through this first act, which I will include everything that happens before 1 year later. I'm down. I'm like, you know what? This is well done. It's well directed. It looks great. Everybody seems to be really into it. We're going somewhere. Like this first act is primo for me.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. I won't say I like it as much as you do, but it definitely is attention grabbing and arresting for sure.
Yeah, I think it was a good first act. It sets up everything that we're going to see going forward. So I think they do a good job of the conflict, especially in Julie's mind of what's going on here. And then setting up to the fact that they're not really going to speak to each other after this happens. Yeah,
everybody goes their separate ways. I wrote in my notes 1 year later and now everything sucks.
Well, yes, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Julie has bad skin, bad grades. Now she gets threatening mail. She's not friends with anybody anymore. Like, really, like, everything has kind of gone sideways for them. And I think that's what we're supposed to get, is that the one who is trying to be the moral conscience for the group is the one who's taking it the worst.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's how it would be taken for someone like, I mean, everyone else, maybe Ray took it bad too, but we don't really get that over. But you get the feeling like Helen and Barry are just like, man, whatever, on with my life.
I got the sense that Helen and Barry were more upset with like how maybe disappointing this next chapter of their lives had been versus what they had done last summer.
Right. They're more concerned about themselves instead of what happened. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Whereas it's eating Julie up inside.
All right, so the question is, how long did Helen last in New York before she had to come home?
I don't think she ever went.
No. She went. Like, she said it went. It didn't really work out. Like, I think she made it maybe till the beginning of the fall, like a couple of months, and then came back, and now I was working the fragrance counter at the store with that sister who likes to play a part.
I get the sense that she never went, and she just says that.
You don't even think she made it 6 months?
No,
I don't. Hey, Brian, you don't even think she went. So
nope.
Now to be fair, it was a lot cheaper to live in New York in 1996.
Can't have been that much cheaper.
True, but I got the sense that it would have been one of those. She went up there, and the best thing she could do was sweeping up the floors at the local Metroplex, much less getting an audition anywhere. Small town, big star goes to the big city, and she's just one of like 500,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's definitely a. It was that kind of scenario where it's weird to say this about Sarah Michelle Gellar, but Helen, the character, is definitely positioned as like a what was the name of this town?
Southport.
Yeah, she's a Southport 10, but like a New York 7 or 6.
Yeah, and then on the talent scale, like way below, like not even close.
She was.
Look, her mousy best friend has to write her cheesy Croaker Queen speech. That tells you how much skill she's really got. So.
Yeah, she wasn't even a Southport 10 on the talent scale.
Yeah, she wasn't joining an improv troupe and kind of working tables at the restaurant next to Ann when when Buffy was in between season 2 and 3. Brian, she wouldn't even have the wherewithal to do that. She just went back home. So she didn't make it long at all.
So she wasn't like a founding member of like the Upright Citizens Brigade or anything?
I don't think so. Now, Brian, I want to hear, though, your theory why you think she never left, though.
I just don't think she ever went. I don't know why. She fluffs it off like, oh, it just didn't work out. And that's all we hear of it. So if she actually went and she's talking to her supposed best friend, you would think she'd be like, oh, I went there for so long and I tried and I couldn't get a part, or a little more than, oh, it just didn't work out. So I just don't feel like she ever went, and she ended up working at her dad's store instead.
But she's also got an image to maintain. Yeah. I don't even think she would admit to her best friend that, yeah, I went to New York, but it turns out I suck as an actress and I'm not even soap opera good. And they told me my choices were porno or go home, so I went home.
I don't know.
I could see it. I think the point we're supposed to get here is that none of these people have talked to each other since the 4th of July last year. Again, like they all went their separate ways. They wanted nothing to do with it. Barry probably got the hell out of town the next day and went ahead and just rolled into school. Julie was not far behind him. Whether Helen went to New York or not,
car fixed first.
But. Yeah, but clearly he had the money to get that done. Ray took off.
He just bought a new one, dude. He didn't.
And yeah, right. Well, it's the same model. It's the same 328i. So it's
he just bought a second. He just bought a second one.
Yeah, we don't know what the family does, but yeah, something. But we don't know how long Ray leaves because he doesn't get reintroduced back into the story until a little bit here. But we find out like he didn't exactly go and hang out in Greenwich long either. That's the one I think never left. And I
don't think he did either. I think he went and became a fisherman right away.
I think he jumped on the boat, and I'm going to say right now, I'll just blow the whole thing here. I think they screwed up royally not having him be in league with this fisherman guy all along. It's like the long lost son that he didn't know he had or something like that. And then this was revenge for the sister that he didn't know he had too. And like he wasn't in on this stuff is a missed opportunity for this movie and for this entire story because it makes total sense. if you play it out like that. That would have been great because he could have helped orchestrate half of the magical shit that they have to do to make this work in the second and third act of this movie. And the fact that he never leaves would have worked perfectly for that. But of course, they're not going to do that.
No, they needed a hero to save the damsel in distress, and Ray's the only one left because they killed off Barry. So
yeah, the hero's the rope that's just conveniently in the way, by the way. So
you know why he does that? Because he knows how it works. Because he spent his summer as a fisherman, and now next year. Yeah. So it makes sense that they've set him up as a fisherman to be the hero because he knows how to do all the stuff needed to be done on that boat.
And don't you think it would be a little too obvious to have the guy who, like, one of his first lines is to talk about how he doesn't know who his father is, to have him conveniently be the son of the murder fisherman?
Right.
Only because when they reintroduce him back into the script, he said, prophecy fulfilled, I've become my father. And she says, I thought you didn't know who your dad was. I just knew he worked the boats. Well, you just laid it out there for me. And I know. That's the red herring. That's Kevin Williamson giving me, a rabbit to chase or whatever. I'm just saying, from my point of view, I would have liked it better if the good boy had also been, kind of sinister and the bad guy. Because those are the real monsters in the world, y'all. Like, that's real life. It's the people you don't expect.
I don't know, man. I didn't expect this Ben Willis guy. Who the hell is he?
Because he's not really a character. Yeah.
We don't learn about him until,
We get everybody back a year later, and of course we check in with Julie first. Things are not going well, as we can expect. She gets the threatening letter. Which I love. She has this terrible dialogue with her mother, like, who sent this? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. What does it say? Nothing. And then she just runs upstairs, and I'm like, no, you're following the kid at that point. Go, excuse me, let me see that, please. By the way, you're flunking out of school. I can see your mail now. So that helicopter parenting didn't get invented in the last 10 years, okay? That's always been, y'all. So that was weird. But she goes and, she tries to get Helen's New York number. We go through that whole bit at the store, which I'm glad to hear that in the book that's still true, that the older sister is just a total bitch to her little sister. Like, Bridget Wilson is awful to her in this story. Ilsa is terrible.
She is a very jealous because Helen got the looks and everything handed to her, and she gets nothing.
Okay, so, bad casting because Bridget Wilson is gorgeous. So
that's fine.
She could be Sarah Michelle Gellar's sister. Yeah, that's terrible.
To say, Bridget Wilson is like way more attractive than Sarah Michelle Gellar, especially in this movie.
She's also fatter in the book as well. So yes, they cast it a little differently.
I would say, the casting is blown on this. They needed to get someone that did not look like they could have beat Helen in another Croaker Queen championship, or maybe had been one herself. Like, that would have even been better if she had been one and then had gotten over it and Helen didn't get over it. That would have made some difference.
If they had established that she was like a previous Croaker Queen, it makes a lot more sense to have Bridget Wilson as the older sister.
Yeah, because she is awful to Helen in this movie in every way, and maybe she has some right to be, but I don't know if anybody's that right to be that horrible to somebody. I have an older sibling who is a lot smarter than I am and did a lot more stuff, and he never treated me like that. So good grief. I just don't buy that. But it's stunt casting, it's Hollywood, whatever. We go with it, but it's all to set up the fact that. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Ron, that if Helen is supposed to be playing kind of this battered character, that's not just from Barry. That's everybody in her life. Her dad totally ignores her when she comes in later. Her sister treats her like crap. We don't know where the mom is. We can assume she's gone or passed on or whatever. So Helen is always looking for somebody else to give her validation outside of herself, and she just looks to the wrong people.
Now, my brief reading of that scene where she comes in and her dad is zoning out in front of the TV. Is her dad like a hopeless alcoholic?
I don't know. He didn't look like he was asleep, and he wasn't watching wrestling.
Like he was watching baseball. Anything, was he?
No, he was just watching baseball. He wasn't watching wrestling.
I thought he was drinking while watching baseball, but I may have confused.
I look at
I may have implied that.
Remember the dad, the awful dad that gets killed in the greenhouse in Silver Bullet? Like, if her dad had been like that, then yeah. But I think he was just kind of had worked hard all day, was just kicking his feet up and drinking a glass of tea and watching the Astros play or whatever.
Now, see, I guess I had assumed that the dad was a drunk because it seems like Elsa is the one who's running the store.
Yeah.
We never get the real backstory on why she is. It could have been an accident, or he's not able to do it anymore. Who knows? But they never really tell us why.
Night shift.
Or look, it's like every other teenage horror movie that was ever made. The adults don't really matter. Like, we're really not paying attention to them. In fact, there's very few of them around this town, and the ones that are here either die or are completely ignorable.
Or wear fisherman slickers.
This is true. There's that one that's homicidal.
There's like two of them. Yeah.
Okay, Jay, you've been in North Carolina for a while now, and you've been through at least one July 4th. What was the weather like?
It's like 95 degrees and 90% humidity.
Now, if you went out, now you don't live on the coast, but
it's going to be cooler around the coast, by the way.
Not that much cooler.
At least 10 degrees.
Guys, I looked it up. I looked it up. I looked it up for the July. It was 92 degrees in Wilmington. So it is hot. It is hot here we are in the southeast. It is hot in the summertime.
So clearly this movie was shot in autumn because you see people in jeans.
Actually, it was shot in the spring when it is actually cool. In March, it can get really cool here, especially, and now on the coast, Brian's right. It would be very cool in the spring. That's why Julie's running around with the corduroy jeans in July the 4th at the end of this movie.
You see those guys in the parade who are wearing those big rain fisherman slickers, they would be dropping dead in the streets.
Especially the old man that Barry tackles, like the 80-year-old man.
Exactly that guy.
That man would die. Like, Barry killed him. That's what happened to Barry. He went to jail.
I'm 37 and I wouldn't wear that out in winter.
I said the same thing. I looked at my wife and I said, there's no way. She said, the fishermen would. I said, when they're working the boat, not when they're watching the May Queen parade or what the hell ever.
The Croaker Queen. Also, what is a croaker? Some sort of fish?
It's a fish.
It's a fish. Yeah.
Is it delicious?
I have not had it.
You need to get on this, Jay. You're our correspondent in North Carolina.
I need to. I'm on the other end of this state. I can tell you what Charlotte's like. I can't tell you what the coast is like.
They've got vans full of ice. They can send you some croakers.
This is true. Well, yeah, they apparently have ice everywhere. We'll talk about the ice in the boat later.
That boat is just an ice boat.
That's because the bodies are there.
Yeah, it's too hot. Like, no one's dressed appropriately. That's because Barry's in sweaters all the time, which Ryan Phillippe is like ripped. Now, he may be a little dude. We've kind of called him out for that, but he is absolutely shredded, and he could totally kick all of our asses combined. So let's not play off of it. He's fierce dude, but he is wearing like long sweaters and stuff. And I'm like, clearly it was too cold, and they just said, screw it, nobody's going to care. Because look, in 1997, I didn't pay attention to what the weather was outside. If somebody told me that's what you wear wherever the hell that is in movie land, then sure, I'll go with it. It's now that I have a phone that I can dig up that I know that kind of information from. So I don't know. It's just we're just sort of measling around the plot. But the whole point of this in the second act, and this is what really, Brian, I want to ask you about. Tell me how it works out in the book too, because this just meanders and drags for me while we're going on this little mini Scooby mission with Helen and Julie to try to find out more information about who David Egan was and all that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, in the book, what happens is they, again, it's Ray and Julie who decide to go pay a visit to kind of figure out who's sending them. They believe someone in the family is after them. And so they want to go and confront them because they want to say, hey, if they recognize who we are, they're going to tell them their names. They actually give their real names in the book, not fake names. But they're going to tell them their names and see if they flinch and try to kill them right there because they don't think they'd kill them in the house. Okay, whatever. But anyway, so they go there and they talk to the daughter, Missy. They go and visit with her. The parents are away because the mom has not been doing well since the boy was killed. She's in the hospital. The dad is with the mom while they recover. So she's there by herself, and they notice a few things like, there's men's clothes on the line that she's drying and blah, blah, blah. So they're kind of like doing some kind of a fact-finding mission to figure it out.
So, spoiler warning if we haven't already done that enough here, folks. So, in the book, did they actually kill a kid and then try to hide it?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a big twist where they don't know who they killed here. They just think they killed this David Egan guy. And we get the weird sister Missy who thinks he killed himself over grief. And then she talks about this guy that said he went to high school with her brother, that they were sweet on each other for half a second, but then he went away, and we've learned later that's Ray. I don't know. Anne Heche always gives like a very strange performance. I think in everything I've ever seen her in, she's either overly high-strung or just really weird. This is very akin to the way she would play the Marion Crane character when they remade Psycho. It's almost the same thing. Ron, did you get that off of her?
As an actress, Anne Heche makes weird choices, I think. And my question is, there is a big difference between somebody from the class of 92 and the class of 96. That 4 years of growth and development makes a big difference. So she looked at Freddie Prinze, the supposed high school student, and thought, oh, yeah, he's not 18. He's definitely like 24 years old.
I mean, if he grew the stubble out, maybe he could get there. I don't know. He's so fresh-faced. I don't know. Like
he's so smooth-faced throughout this whole movie.
Yeah. The thing you get,
I don't know if that's just a thing where they're trying to cover for the fact they've got a bunch of like 25-year-old high school students.
Well, she's playing this character, which at this point I think she's like 28 or so in real life. So she's playing about that age.
35.
But yeah, she looks like she's one of the family members of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. That she's in a different movie than the rest of these people. And as she described it, 2 days of work where I just had to be creepy. And I think that's the only direction she got. She just played this so much in a different film than the rest of them. And I can see how, though, if she is supposed to be this like really naive and kind of backwoods person, that somebody like Freddie Prinze Jr. could come in and using his suave, debonair ways, because apparently he's got them, right? Because he did date Julie, that he could, get information out of her, and then, he's gone.
Now, but my question is, did they like date? Did they see each other?
For a half a minute, she said. Like, I guess a couple of times. Maybe it was worth a dinner. I don't know, man. I don't think they had like this whirlwind romance. I think he just took her out and was nice to her.
My guess is they just flirted with each other.
Because
I think he could bat his eyes at her, and then she would tell him things, and then once he found out what he wanted to do, he just disappeared because he was using a fake name anyway. And since he's on the boat all the time, it's not like she's going to go to town and hunt him down.
And he couldn't take her out at all. He had to like come by their house, and that would be the only time he would see her. Because if they went out together in public, this is clearly not a large town.
I don't think they did at all. I think she thought there was chemistry between them, and they flirted, and that's about it.
We should mention too that what has got him on this goose chase is the fact that Barry got run over in his new BMW, maybe the repaired BMW. We don't know, because he goes on his boxing workout. And we get the death of Max at the docks because he gets the big hook through the chin, which is a bloody spot. I will agree that's one of the bloody spots in the film.
One of the two.
Yeah, one of the two. That and the Ilsa kill later on. There's this whole setup, right, where the fisherman is standing over Barry. And my question to you two is, why does he not kill him then?
Great question. That was what I was thinking too, is why let him live? Number one, unless he thought he was dead, but he looked up at him, right? So he knew he was alive. Why not do it there unless he wanted him to go back and tell everybody that someone was after them? But I think that we've already established that.
Yeah, but he doesn't. That's the thing. Like, he just says, like, I don't know what. I don't know.
Asshole.
Yeah, well, so, I don't know what I saw. Like, if he had served an actual purpose, yes. But all he does is sort of be nice to Helen again when he's like playing her enforcer bodyguard later. But I don't think they get back together or anything. So I don't know why they let him live.
My assumption was they let him live to get all four of them in the same environment to make it like less legwork for him to kill them all.
But they never do.
Yeah, it's only 2 and 2. Like, that's the best he could get is 2 of them together at the same time. So,
well, nobody said he was good at this plan.
Yeah. I mean, he's an older man, too. We should be nice to poor Muse Watson.
He's an older man. He's a fisherman that's really hard on the body.
Yeah.
You know, he's not, he's no Barry or Ray. He's not a spring chicken type of guy.
I mean, Muse Watson, who a lot of people know now for all the TV stuff he's done, and if you watched Prison Break, he was maybe or maybe not D.B. Cooper on that show, which was a lot of fun to see. He was in his late 40s here. It wasn't like he was ancient, but when I was 18, 19, 20, 47 was like, forget that. Now I'm staring down the barrel of it coming at me, and I'm like, oh, it's not really that old. But yeah, so yeah, he doesn't. All he does is get them 2 and 2. I guess maybe he wants to kill him in a public place. I don't know. That to me, like, in good slasher movie following, you do the pick off, right? and it's one at a time, and they just start falling. So Barry going first makes sense because one, he's an asshole, and two, he's kind of asking for it. I mean, he's a huge jerk to everybody.
Well, and he's the main guy who really did the most damage to the dude, right? I mean, he was attacked by him, threw him in the water anyway, then went back in there to get the crown, saw him that he was alive, and left him to die.
Exactly.
So,
Doesn't he also, and I may have imagined this to make myself a better movie, doesn't he also bludgeon him with a flashlight a couple of times?
I don't remember that at all.
I don't remember that at all.
So, yeah, I don't think he ever gets a punch in. He just talks a lot of trash and gets run over by his own car, and then he's kind of whimpering while the hook's standing over him, and he wakes up in the hospital.
Oh, right. I thought he whacked him a few times on the dock when the fisherman wakes up.
Oh, that's Ray that gets to do that later.
Guy.
Yeah.
That's Ray.
Barry never gets a good shot in on him. So this is also though. We're supposed to be thinking if we don't know who this is, right? It could be Max still, right? But now we've just seen Max killed, so it's obviously not Max. So if we think it's Barry, well, it's not going to be Barry because he can't run over himself. So, because we didn't invent the self-driving car at that point, right? So, and Barry would have had one if we had had one. So, yeah, he didn't do that. So, could it be Ray? Could it be, we don't know, right? Those are our red herrings. It could be Ilsa, who looked real spooky under a restroom sign at the department store or whatever, but nobody believes that. And so we don't know, but I just, again, it's one of the things that it's a road bump I hit in the second act of this movie where I realized like they missed that one. Like they should have killed him because it doesn't do anything the rest of the movie. Like it doesn't serve any purpose for him to, show up again and chase an old man down a dock who shouldn't be wearing a slicker on the 4th of July like we've established. So, but we do all this though because that does send the two girls on the goose chase, right? They come back. Well, later on, Julie's driving around, and she hears something moving around the back of the car. She didn't know what. She pops up in the trunk on that good old Dodge Aries, and there's Max and a bunch of crabs and ice all in her trunk. And have either of you fellas like hauled seafood in a cooler in a car before?
Nope.
Not living seafood.
Oh, well, not living, dead living otherwise. There is just an odor that goes with it. That's just part of it that you're thankful Febreze was invented for. What happens is Julie sees this. She runs. She gets everybody gathered around to open up the car trunk. Not only is the trunk not smelling of crabs, fish, and dead person, it is pristine. It is gorgeous. And there's no like hint of plastic. I'm like the logistics that this old man fisherman, he's got a little bit of strength because he can pull off like Houdini shit here.
Not only there, but when he kills Barry, too, there's not a drop of blood. Well, I take that back. There's a drop of blood left behind, but he just slaughtered a guy, numerous cuts, and not a drop of blood on the ground where he killed this guy. So he must have laid down some real good plastic there to catch everything before he decided to slash him.
Maybe they're just establishing that her car stinks all the time, so
or
really
that she has hallucinations.
It is her mom's car, we should say, because she does hitch a ride home with like the one African American person in this movie who's her roommate that's in it for like 5 seconds and drives her from Boston to there before going to wherever she's from, and so she's driving her mom's car.
Maybe her mom is chain smoking salmon in the trunk.
There we go. Chain Smoking Salmon sounds like it could have been a good late 90s band, by the way. So, Chain Smoking Salmon. That's your indie band. So,
maybe they're setting up that she's hallucinating.
That's what they're trying to play it off as, because you get the great, what are you waiting for line. And I honestly am saying, I'm asking the same thing, Jennifer Love Hewitt. What are we waiting for? Let's get on with this movie, because this movie's an hour and 45 minutes long, and it doesn't need to be. Like, it's dragging right now. For me, guys, I'm really legitimately bored. Both times I rewatched this for this review, I had to make myself put my phone down, because I was legitimately getting bored at what was happening.
Yeah, I kind of zoned out, obviously.
I watched every second.
Were you invested every second?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get into it then. Let's get to the third act, because the second act drags on forever, right? We do get a good scare with Helen, though. I do like the fact that he chops off her hair in the middle of the night as a way to freak her out, because that's obviously like her superpower is her hair. Because her sister,
all of The Godfather.
Yeah, right. It's the horse in the bed moment, but not nearly as bloody or effective. But it kind of works because Sarah Michelle Gellar has a good scream, and it's a freak out moment for sure.
And she finds some good wigs because She didn't look like she had any hair cut off after they go to the.
Dude, Dolly Parton is like doing hair in that town, like in Still Magnolias too. Like she went straight to that woman's house and got that stuff fixed.
I thought she just went and got a nice Rachel haircut or something.
Yeah. Well, Brian, you and I
Maybe.
called this out on the beginning of season 2 of Buffy. We called this "I Know What You Did Last Summer" hair because it is
That's
her
true.
shorter hair.
I feel like it would have been funny if the killer had left like a croaker wrapped in newspaper with her hair, like
Right?
in the bed.
Or stuck it on like one of the points of the crown, like a dead fish or something. Yeah.
Yeah, like a mafia message.
Yeah, right. Let's just go full on with this thing. Well, they weren't ready to make that kind of bloody movie, but they should have been because it would have been so much better.
Yeah, was this was PG or 13?
No,
right?
this is rated R. It's rated
It's
R
R.
because of all the language and the violence. But really, the
Number
language.
one-
They drop a lot of F bombs in here, and by the 90s,
yeah,
man,
I was going to say
you couldn't
what
do that.
language or what violence, because you could have cut the language out.
Yeah.
If
I
you
mean-
cut the language out, this would have been a PG-13.
Oh, and I think they did that so that they wouldn't get that. I think they wanted this to be. Scream was an R. They wanted this to be an R rating because.
So let's have some more blood. Let's have some more blood.
I agree because stylistically it would have made sense, but the director disagrees with us. He thinks it makes it classier to not do the over-the-top blood, and I argue that we've got a lot of dead mannequin bodies. Which, by the way, the Johnny Galecki dummy in the ice, the first of 3 that do not look anything like the character they were supposed to look like that was murdered before. It's bad.
Yeah, those were pretty bad.
Yeah. So the Helen and Barry at the end are not modeled on none of those people. So
Yeah.
they're like the CPR dummy. So dressed up to be murder victims. That's bad. So
Yeah, there's a reason this guy only directed 6 movies.
whatever. They got him cheap. Whatever. So logistical problems aside, now we've now split our people up into 2. All right. So Helen and Barry are palling around at the parade, right? Because Barry is you're going to watch her, and he's going to watch her pass her crown along or something because it's a tradition.
Yeah, she has to be in the parade as the reigning Croaker Queen, and Barry is apparently her bodyguard.
Right, he's just sitting in front of the float, like a thug, for no reason whatsoever, with a cast on his arm, so much good he can do.
Wait,
by the way, his
now-
scholarship is gone. His coach is just, you're in the transfer portal, Barry, goodbye.
Doesn't he hit Ray with his cast earlier in the movie?
Yeah, they get in a fight, yeah.
It looks like he straight up Cowboy Bob Orton's him in the face with the cast.
He does. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's his new thing. He's going to go into wrestling. In the Carolinas, he's not far away from where he needed to be to do it.
Well, here's the thing. Have either of you ever broken your arm?
Oh, yes.
No.
Now, does it hurt? Did it hurt when you hit your cast on something like someone's face?
I could roll over in bed at night and it hurt. All right, because it was my wrist and my whole cast was done. Any pressure on that thing hurt. It hurt. But I'm not made out of steel like Ryan Phillippe apparently is. So,
Yeah, you're not the indestructible 5'8" cyborg.
I know, right? Well, hey man, he's got to be indestructible. He's playing college football at that size. So, or kickboxing or whatever the hell he's doing. So, but that's the whole point. But we get that going on. Barry and Helen are getting chased around. Julie's also gone back to Missy because we got to get Anne Heche's second scene in this movie, or else it's just a cameo. And she's going to start putting more of it together. This is before like the internet was really a thing, right? Like you had to do like microfiche to search old newspapers and stuff, or look at old clippings.
She got on the LexisNexis.
When it was a reel.
The internet was there. I mean, she used it in the movie, but
Yeah, not very well. So.
well, I mean, back then, what did you have? You had Netscape and Navigator.
I was gonna say, yeah, for what it was fine. It's
She dialed up to AOL.
Yes.
got a chat room. I'm only gonna say, guys, a year before Jeff Goldblum took down an alien invasion with a Mac laptop and a cell phone, so we were there. We were in that age. So
There.
yeah.
Windows 98 had just come out, or hadn't come out yet, so we were still on 95, crashing with blue screens constantly. Yeah, it was a good time.
That would have been great if
Loved
she
it.
had, was on a good article about who Ben Willis was, and then the damn thing just
Blue screen to
crashed.
death.
Because everyone could have related, right? So
Yeah.
good time.
Or the little frowny face Apple computer.
Yeah, it doesn't do the reboot. Yeah. She's printed out on dot matrix, 11 by 17 green bar or something. But, yeah. So anyway, she's doing the Scooby mystery while Helen and Barry are getting killed, and a lot of other people are getting killed too. So Elsa gets killed. This is a reshoot where they have to have the blood on the window because Gillespie just turned it in with just the slash, and she falls down, and the studio's like, "Where's all the blood? He hit her in the neck." So he had to go back and reshoot it. And so we Helen gets killed behind a bunch of tires, which, I'll be honest, in 1997, that was a shocking way to see Buffy go down. Wasn't what I expected. It's literally like her and Ryan Phillippe, though, are killed off screen almost. Like you see inset shots of their face, but you never see them actually getting hacked. Nowadays, like people's heads would be coming off and stuff.
Yeah, which was disappointing to me. I really wanted to see both of them just I wanted to see like entrails.
Well, yeah, the pretty people.
Goodness.
In Scream, we had seen them cut to ribbons. Like you wanted to see that. We had seen Drew Barrymore, gutted from a tree, basically a year before. Why can't we, cut these people up?
Yeah, and you spent $17 million on this movie, and I know $10 million of it went to Kevin Williamson, and that's fine. But you've got $7 million. You can't buy some like sheep intestines.
Something. Need something to go here because, again, they're killed off screen and it's almost like they're inconsequential, which, again, I remember Helen getting killed again. I thought Barry had been dead, and I thought, oh, no, wait, she saw him murdered. He's not there. Then she gets killed because we have the random cop get killed, too, because this guy has set up this elaborate trap because he knows this cop's going to try to go down this road, so I got to put up the police barricade here so he'll go down this street so I can, block it off, and then that's when I'll get her. Wicked elaborate.
To be fair to the fisherman, that road was blocked off for the parade.
True, but the fact that he can figure out the route that they're taking her out of there. By the way, I know cops, they take you out the back way possible. Like, they're not going down any main drag because they're getting you out of town fast. Also, they don't stop for jack. When you got somebody else in your car, you don't stop. You radio that into somebody else.
Well, and if you're not under arrest, the cop doesn't typically put you in the back seat.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too. Why is she locked up?
She should have been in the front seat next to him. And how the hell did she get out? Did we ever see that?
I think the window.
She kicks out the window.
Yeah, she kicks out the window.
Okay.
So she does, that's the thing is Helen shows, strength here that she later just completely loses. Though I think they're supposed to be led to believe she gets a couple shots in on the guy while they're fighting behind the tires. But, you don't see anything, so how do you know? Because it's all backlit by those damn fireworks.
No, that's the point. She's getting killed in basically broad nightlight.
Okay.
And nobody's noticing because there's fireworks. And
there's
she's
a parade going
stabbed.
by. No one noticed. Well, she's the outgoing Croaker Queen. They're done with her. They've already crowned another one. She caused the scene.
She had to give her crown back for freaking out and ruining the whole pageant.
She ruined the pageant. That was the lasting memory of her. Like, her obit would be like, Helen, who ruined the pageant before being bludgeoned to death in a backyard alley.
But at least she cut off that terrible song.
She did cut off. Well, that song was bad, though. But you know what? Having judged a few pageants in my day, boys, I'm going to tell you that brought back, flashback memories. I was there. Anyway. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. So, to pull my Forrest Gump line of the show out. So we find out what's going on here. Julie runs in. She meets up with Ray. She's trying to information dump on him. And then that's when she realizes, oh, your boat's named Billy Blue. You're the guy. You've been two-timing around with Missy or whatever. And that's when Ben Willis, Muse Watson, steps out of the back and knocks him cold. And the easy child. If somebody ever says that to you in that voice, by the way, run the hell the other way. That is not somebody that wants to help you.
And just so happens to be there to put his arm out to knock the crap out of Ray.
Yeah, he teleported 10 city blocks to get over there to do that, by the way.
Well, we don't know how much time has passed.
Well, he's got that Jason Voorhees travel plan.
Seriously.
There you go.
He's tapped into... that's what I'm... the whole thing is he's alive, but it would have almost been better if they'd just gone full Voorhees with this and been like he had come back from the dead like a true Scooby villain or something. But as it turns out, he is a true Scooby villain because he's just an old man in the mask.
He needed more scars, though.
Something, right?
Especially with the way his face was mutilated from the car wreck.
Yeah, he did have some scars, but he needs to be deformed. He needs to be like Castle Freak.
Yeah, something like but he keeps that thing pulled up around his face because when you pull it back, it's like, ooh, you can't do that, right? But
Yeah, he needs to be like a real Phantom of the Opera type.
Yeah, he looks like he looks like a dude that's just spent a lot of evenings at the bar after working hard on the boat for 25 years or something like that. He doesn't really look that hard living, so I don't know.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy who hangs out at the bar from Roadhouse.
Exactly right. Yeah, and he sweeps up the eyeballs at the end of the night. Of course, Julie gets on the boat with him because that's what you do at the end of these dumb movies. And he has so conveniently laid out for her all the information she needs. He doesn't even have to confess to her like good Bond villains do. It's, here's my slicker. Here's all the stuff where I've been stalking y'all through the newspaper for the last year or so and setting all of this up. And here's this little charm. Let me fling it one time for you so you know it's me. And my question is, he does that thing, and I'm like, does she know what that's supposed to signify? Like, we do as an audience, but how the hell does she know what that is?
Yeah, I don't think she could. That doesn't make any sense, but she never saw it. She didn't know who this Egan guy was beforehand or what that stupid little thing meant to him. So, yeah, I don't get it.
It's just for our benefit, not for her benefit.
It's got to be to point out that he has a connection to Egan.
Hence the serial killer hunting detective bulletin board.
Right. I mean, it would be like if you had caught up with Norman Bates years later and like he had all of his wall of fame, of all of his murder or something like that. Before you just conveniently know, or if Jason like opened up a scrapbook of like, here's last year's campers that I murdered. Here's your sister. Sorry about that. If he was talking to the guy in part 4.
It's funny that you mentioned Norman Bates after we discussed In Haitian, the Psycho remake.
Right? I think it was just on the brain again because I thought about that horrible movie and how horribly this movie is going at the end for me.
Would this movie have been better if the killer in the raincoat had been Vince Vaughn?
Maybe.
Dodgeball Vince Vaughn.
That would have kind of been awesome, actually. Now that you say it, Vince Vaughn would have been a better Ray than Freddie Prinze Jr. is here. I'm going to say that right now because wow. At least
but Vince Vaughn would be a foot taller than Ryan Phillippe.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn's 6'5", so he's really tall. So yeah,
that's why I thought it would be better to make him the killer, so that way the dude in the galoshes is like a giant.
Well, I mean, like that person changes. It's a different person every time they do the stunt. I swear. Like, they're varied sizes, and that is purposely done so that you don't know who the killer is the first time around. I mean, Watson's about average height. I mean, he's probably, maybe 6 feet tall or so. He's not that big of a dude. He's not imposing necessarily, but he looks fierce because he is kind of lean and tough, and he looks grizzled, right? That's the whole point. But if you watch this movie again, the fisherman is always a different height because it's a different person doing it every damn time. So, and they knew that. They did that on purpose, they say. But I'm like, was this person able to shrink? And, he's got magical transportation powers. So, and he can make crabs and ice and people disappear out of trunks in like 5 minutes. So sure, I guess so. But we get the big fight in the end. And I've been on a fishing boat, even a commercial fishing boat. And the one thing, like, even if they're a little larger than maybe you think they are, the hull's a little deeper and stuff, guys. But one thing they're not full of, boats are not full of a lot of space, because space is a problem on a boat because that's somewhere where water can get. So everything is like nooks and crannies on boats and stuff. I don't know if y'all spent any time on it or not, but I was blown away by like how freaking battleship huge this boat was all of a sudden.
I've actually been on like a deep sea fishing boat where we went out off the coast of Florida for fishing, and you're right. There was no barn full of ice in the bottom of the boat, because it's literally like she falls into a barn, because it is like she's got like 12 feet of space over her head. There's like a ton of ice, literally.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is. It's also not refrigerated in any way. So my wife was the one that picked up on this. She said, you know how that's like glass beads and not ice? And I said, well, besides the fact that would be impractical. She said, yeah. She said, but that girl's clothes don't get wet. She's like, you get around that kind of ice and you start piling through it like that, it's going to get wet. Like, she's just, flipping through it like it's no big deal. And I was like, good point. I hadn't thought about that. Like, but it's an enormous amount of ice because we're supposed to believe he's hidden these two bodies here for her conveniently to be able to find the bad mannequins of them dead.
Yeah, and those mannequin faces are terrible. Terrible.
Brian, are you still going with this at this point? Because like Ron and I have clearly turned on the movie at this point, like the way that the fisherman has turned on Julie here. Are you still like digging the suspense of this, or are we killing your dream here?
You're not killing my dream. I'm just having fun with this movie. You guys apparently don't want to have fun with this movie, so that's cool. I don't care. If you don't want to just enjoy the movie for what it is and you want to pick apart the movie, go for it, man. But I just sit back and enjoy the movie for what it is because I have just emotional attachments to this movie. It's good.
Well, that's great, Brian. I'm glad you're still able to go with it. We get this elaborate chase going with it, and of course, like every good bad Bond villain, I said before, he laid it out for her. He didn't have to talk to her. Now he's going to decide, I'm going to talk to you a lot before I kill you, and conveniently the ropes are above him. And I will give you credit for one thing, Brian. You pointed out something earlier on that I had not thought of, is he gets his hand kind of caught up in some of the ropes that are some of the rigging of this, and Ray knows immediately which one to pull because of his fisherman background.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's really why he's there, is to be the hero of the day for Julie James. And because he knows his way around the boats where she has no flipping clue what she's doing on there. So,
I mean, he becomes an action hero at the end of this. He gets knocked off that boat twice.
Yeah,
he crawls
you kind of
back
expected
up
him
it,
to, like, tell her to grab on and, Luke Skywalker Leia her across onto shore afterwards, right? I mean...
Yeah, might as well have. So I mean, they both have a great knowing look after Muse Watson goes on a little ride there and gets his fake hand chopped off and then dumped into the drink. Do you have any idea why this man would want to kill you? Nope, none whatsoever. Okay, well that'll wrap that up.
Right.
No, I think we're going to go downtown and talk.
All right, cool.
Yeah, no, we're going to go downtown and talk a lot about that. That's
my question is, he survived being thrown in the drink last time. Why would you not want to make sure he was there dead?
Right? Thank you for at least calling that out. Because at this point, it'd be like, no, we're going to troll it. You know how to run this boat? Put the net down. We're fishing that up before we go and call the cops.
At least capture him, right?
Something, right? So, I mean, the man
the cops don't seem worried. They're just like, whatever.
I know, yeah, because they just find hooks with hands and people murdered by hooks all over town all the time, right? Like, they hadn't put that together yet, I guess.
Yes, they're like, he must have died from that fall. So we don't need to search for him. We don't need to catch the murderer.
It's a reasonable expectation, to be fair. It's a reasonable expectation. But there's a lot of other unanswered questions here that I would like the law enforcement to be a little more involved, maybe. But I'm putting way too much realism in this. I will cop to that right now. I'm asking for something this movie is not built to do. Fine. I'm good with that. I will give them credit for, again, screenwriting 101. We've set up boat guy knows boats. Boat things happen. He does boat thing to kill the boat guy. There we go.
I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm with you on the fact that they should have at least tried to find the body or arrest the dude. Because they did find dead people in there. Hello.
Well, what did you make of the whole bit where Ray and Julie have this whole bit where he has to tell her, like, you're the only one that gets me. You're the only one that understands me. This is why I love you. I was, again, going, like, this is where I need him to, somewhere another paperclip rolls by, like, fisherman and son reunite after decades apart, so we can know, like, he was doing the Valentine thing or something, Brian.
The Valentine thing. Oh, God. Here's the thing. Like, in the book, they are... boyfriend, girlfriend for a long time. He has feelings for her. She wants nothing to do with him after the fact that he sides with Helen and Barry when they make the quote unquote pact not to talk about the event and not to go to cops. So she starts seeing someone else and he's completely jealous of it. And that someone else, if you read the book, you'll know. But they don't. It's not the same thing. They don't necessarily become boyfriend girlfriend again after all this trauma, right? But apparently in the movie they do.
Yeah, they go from horrible trauma, can't even talk to each other anymore, to more horrible trauma, to they're having phone sex at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Now, Brian, I'm not going to read the book. There's no way. So, does the guy she ended up dating, is that Ben Willis?
Ben Willis is nobody in the book. There is no Ben Willis in the book. What happens? Okay, do you want me to spoil it?
Yes, spoil it.
Okay.
Yeah, man,
I'm sorry. The book is from 1970 something. So if you haven't read it, pause this and go somewhere else and read it and then come back. I'll tell you this: the book is a lot better than the movie.
Almost half.
regardless of how much I like it. The book is a lot better than the movie. In the book, what happens is Julie is dating this guy. I forget what his nickname is now. Bud. This guy Bud sounds like an old man, and they portray him like he's some old man. He acts like an old man, whatever. And Helen is living in this nice apartment area because she has become like this rising star, they call it, for winning some pageantry or something. And so she's on the news and doing all this stuff. And this guy named Collie moves in next door, and he's got the hots for her. But she's dating Barry still, right? Only Barry's banging chicks left and right, so he doesn't give a damn. But Barry ends up getting assaulted and stabbed and all sorts of stuff. He ends up in the hospital. He gets shot through the spine. So he ends up in the hospital. His parents think that Helen is responsible for calling Barry out where he gets shot. Anyway, what ends up happening is the collie is Bud, and Bud is trying to date both Helen and Julie so that he can murder them.
Wow.
So he's the guy. He's a half brother, I think, of the kid who gets killed.
Okay, so he's the half brother
like
who gets killed. Okay.
That sounds like a much better movie.
I know. Like,
I don't know why they didn't go with that, but yeah. It's a great book. I really enjoyed it.
I might have to actually read that now that you've said
I've got
that.
some Audible credits. I'm on board.
Yeah.
It's under 6 hours of time. So the book is only like 6 hours long.
Yeah, it's a short book, so it's kind of like A Stir of Echoes was. It's a really short story. I mean, I've got it on my Kindle. I've just never bothered to read through it, but I think it's less than 200 pages or something. So, good YA novels don't have to be these epic things for thousands of pages. Stephanie Meyer, looking at you. But anyway, and Veronica Roth and everybody else. But anyway, well, we're at the end, so I do want to talk about that last scene that gets tacked on here because that again was shot much later. It actually shot next door to Party of Five in California. So luckily Julie and that character had the same exact hair because we get her in a towel and we have this steamy shower thing. Like, she's supposed to get an email in the original version that says, "I still know," and then it cuts to black, but they thought that wouldn't be scary to anybody in 1997, and they were right. I don't know that the steamy shower and the guy Jason Voorheesing through the window works either. Like, it just sort of ends. It's just a jump end.
It is a bizarre end, but when they do that, they're setting up for a sequel. So I guess that's what we're going with here. So, but it does seem a little strange.
But they could have stopped with just the "I still know" written in the shower and skipped the whole Jason Voorhees jump scare. I guarantee you that she was signed on for more than just the one movie. Even back then, surely they had a sequel clause.
I agree, because now you got to pay it off, right? When you come into the next movie, how does she survive that?
Let's do what we always do here at the end of Film Strip. Final thoughts, recommendations, popcorn ratings. Brian, we'll start with yours.
I love this movie. I don't know why. Obviously, it has its flaws, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because I have such tied memories to my wife and I with this movie that I just like it so much. It could be. We both watched it for the first time together in college, and we watch it quite often, actually, at least once a year. So I guess I just really like it. So for me, it's a large popcorn because I really like this movie. Ron?
I'm on the border between a small and a medium popcorn. It's not really the quality of a medium popcorn, but it's inching close to that so stupid it's fun sort of territory. The first act is great, and the third act is ridiculous, but that second act just kind of drags the whole thing down. So I'm going to go with probably a small popcorn. It's fine. My wife was really excited to see me watching it when she came home from work, but she was more excited about it than I was.
Let's be fair, that's probably never happened in your entire run on Film Strip that Holly's walked in and been excited about something I've made you watch. So except maybe The Room. So at least
she was excited about that?
I've also realized, too, once again, that both of you are married to women named Holly, and this gets really confusing for me. So anyway. Well, Rachel was totally down to watch it with me, just so everybody knows. So maybe they should do a side podcast and talk about everything we didn't. But for me, man, like I said it before and I'll say it again, the first act of this is awesome. It is fun. It's everything I remember about the movie. everything I have forgotten about it is all the stuff I hate, and it's the draggy second act, and it's the totally ridiculous third act. And I realize at some point these movies all have a little bit of ridiculous to them, but like Friday the 13th earns ridiculous. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does. This one doesn't in my book. And it's a disappointment because you've actually got good actors here. All of these people still work and are still doing things in entertainment. Freddie Prinze has pretty much walked away from acting at this point, but he does a lot of production, does a lot of writing stuff. Sarah Michelle's still active. Jennifer Love Hewitt's still active. Ryan Phillippe was in a movie last year. So, I mean, they're still working. You know, Johnny Galecki's still working. All these people are working somewhere. So you've got a good cast, and you've got a great writer here. Williamson does good stuff, and this just falls apart. And now having heard what the book was that it was based off of, holy cow, they really blew it. And I already said I thought they blew it when they didn't make Ray part of the whole plot and complex for the end, because I thought that would have been a more fun ending. Maybe it's a little, too tropey, but I think this invents the tropes. This is just disappointing for me to go back to something that I remember kind of liking, but wasn't on my high mark when I saw it back in 97, and now to realize just how badly it falls apart, and it just doesn't hold up. It's not even dumb fun for me, so I got to give it a small popcorn as well. Well, it's been a lot of fun talking about this. This movie wasn't that great, but it was a lot of fun talking to you guys about it, as always, here on Film Strip. So tell folks how they can follow the other things that you guys do on the internet. Ron, how can people follow your writing?
You can catch me on denofgeek.com and denofgeek.us. Generally writing about genre television, so fun stuff there.
No, you can follow me on Brian's Vinyl Records on YouTube, on podcasting, on Instagram, on Facebook. All of them Brian's Vinyl Records there, and my Twitter is @Brian'sVinylRec.
And of course, folks, you can follow the show at Filmstrip Pod on Twitter or search Filmstrip Podcast on Facebook to connect with us there. We really appreciate you joining us on this latest episode. You go to filmstrippodcast.com. You'll see the archives of the entire podcast and where you can download it. We would appreciate it if you'd share the show and leave us a review. It helps other people find it. We appreciate the support. Until next time, for Brian and Ron, I'm Jay. We know you've been listening to Filmstrip.
Thank you for listening to Filmstrip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Filmstrip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.